Welcome to JDC West Edmonton. Teams will have 18 to 20 minutes to present. I'll give you a warning at 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and a 30-second countdown like this. Following your presentation, there will be a 5-minute Q&A. Teams may begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Jim and Jeff. You have been presented with a great opportunity for you to expand your current product line. And me and Adeep have been going over the documentation about this company and the evaluation itself. And today we will be giving you our recommendation for your company moving forward. So to start it off, we were looking at your current strategy of how you want to frame this acquisition. So by acquiring SPI, Old Spice will secure those productive assets in order to increase their efficiency and expand its product line in the perfume and cologne industry. So right now, you view their company as a way for you to buy those productive assets and basically increase your efficiency and increase your distribution channels through the vehicles. And while this is potentially beneficial for your company, we want to see you using this company to actually diversify your product line and head into the deodorant industry, which leads me to our adjusted strategy for your company today. So by acquiring SPI, Old Spice will diversify its product line and become a major player in the whole personal scent industry. So right now you are just occupying the more narrow, almost like a niche market in the cologne and scent industry. And we recommend that you expand that product line into the deodorant industry using SPI as that foothold for you to enter that market. So today, the big question is, do you acquire them? So in terms of the issue, so to just give some context to our presentation today, right now you were presented with the opportunity to acquire this business. We do want to bring up the fact that it is a timely decision. Right now, there is a deadline to actually go through with this acquisition by November 1st. However, it may seem like a great deal, but there are some issues in terms of the legal issues and some management issues in terms of your HR that do bring up some red flags in terms of the actual acquiring the company and how it would integrate together. So right now, you said that you want to kind of stay away from those issues and just purchase their production assets and basically not have to work on any of those issues. We think that if you're able to solve those issues and get control, you can actually reduce the costs of producing in the deodorant industry and then increasing your net income overall. So now if we jump into the next part, which is really looking at whether or not you want to acquire SPI. So if we're looking at the major issues, as I brought up before, that there are some impending lawsuits, those happening in 2012 and 2013. So the one has been resolved, and there are some legal issues that happen there, but there's also one that hasn't been resolved. So if you go and acquire this company, and if you buy the shares of this company, you are actually absorbing this lawsuit for yourself, and you are taking on this liability of this lawsuit. So come November 1st, your company will actually be responsible for this lawsuit and potentially cause major harm to your company in terms of its ethics and its reputation in the industry. So this is definitely an issue that we want to address later on in our recommendation. And next, there is some credit issues. So we do see a large portion of the assets actually are bad debts. So we want to we see this as an issue that we're actually able to resolve in our recommendation to actually decrease the amount of expenses and increase that net income for you personally. And lastly, there are some management policies, those in terms of the repair and maintenance and the management salaries itself. So right now you've allocated yourself actually 80% of the entire management salaries. So that essentially means that you're paying yourself, SPI's CEO is paying himself roughly around $400,000. And we think that if you hire a new management staff, once you acquire that business, that you can actually reduce those management wages, and again, reducing that expenses amount to increase your net income. That's going to be through hiring someone and allocating an amount that is correct for their amount of time working for your business, and potentially looking to hire multiple management people. So with that $400K, we almost have a cushion where if one management person is not enough, we have potential to hire 2 or 3 because you do have that cushion in reducing those incomes. So that we will see later on in the risk that there is potential to hire more management staff if this project, taking it on, seems too much for you to shoulder yourself and the one management staff we actually consider hiring. So then looking on the other side of this acquisition, let's look at the benefits. benefits, and I would like to mention that this is the benefits of acquiring SPI and just using them for the production and the vehicle purposes. So first, that you do have that increased asset base. You are able to increase your productivity, you have increased equipment in terms of the vehicle itself, so you have an increased distribution to different channels and different areas where you're able to access other retailers. And this is obviously very beneficial for your company, and we want to keep that in mind as we keep going forward also. And next is the tax benefits. So there are carry forwards going back to the 2008 recession. So in probably the 2 years after the recession, the company did have some non-capital carry forwards because of some net loss that they incurred. So then moving forward, you want to really see if you can utilize those tax carry forwards, and you saw this as a great benefit. Again, we do see this as something that you're able to use moving on. We would like to mention that, especially through buying shares, you will take on their tax carry forward because you're acquiring the business essentially. So this is definitely a major upside of just acquiring the business itself. And lastly, the product line expansion. So I think I've touched on this a few times, but you will be increasing your product line. You'll be increasing your distribution channel, and that will entail, or that will give you the chance to increase your product line in the cologne and perfume industry. So looking at kind of offering a more wide variety of cologne and perfumes is definitely a benefit of this operation here itself. However, key takeaway here is I think that there's a key takeaway that this acquisition can be very beneficial for your business, as we see here, but we also think that there is a greater opportunity for your business to capitalize more on actually diversifying that product line and entering into the deodorant market, which I will let Dean expand on right now.
Now, looking at some of the benefits of consolidation, Michael has touched upon that acquiring the whole business and consolidating it into your asset base, into your product line does offer diversification benefits, which could, in the long run, mitigate those risks that might come into play in terms of sales volume. And so, what are the benefits of consolidation? We do see an increased earning potential. Looking at SPI's recent performance, we do see consistent growth in sales of 7%. We also see that their gross margins have been consistent, so that does tell us that they have been maintaining their cost of production accurately. We also see you get to increase your product offering. Now, it reduces your business risk quite substantially by allowing you to go into this new product line. We also see you have the ability to gain much more market share. Like I said, the business is growing in sales. We have come out a long way from 2008. The economy is turning back up again. So we do see not only you gaining a lot of benefits from the productive assets, but as the business as a whole in terms of increasing your profitability. And lastly, the point about greater profitability. Now, I've been talking about increasing your sales and increasing your top line number, but we do see, like Michael touched upon, there has been certain expenses regarding lawsuits, regarding bad debts, that we do believe are very avoidable expenses, and we believe that by implementing right policies and procedures into your company, which you already have in your company, which allowed you to be so successful right now, we do believe that culture, when it's brought into SPI, will decrease all those expenses and further increase your profitability. So the takeaway from this primarily is SPL's operations can greatly enhance your profitability. Now, we know you've been looking at this in terms of procuring the assets so that you can benefit from the capital assets they have and increase your efficiencies, but in terms of the entire product line, we see far greater opportunity for you going forward. Now, let's talk about the deal. What does the deal look like? Primarily, the owners of SPI has indicated an asking price, which you can see in the middle here, of 3.5 times their EBITDA, which means earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation and amortization. Essentially, what that number is your free cash flow number. What cash you're generating from just operating every year. Looking at their valuation, we estimated, since their year has not ended, we kind of stay conservative and estimated $1 million of depreciation. That left us with $2.2 million in earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation, and that leaves price of 7.7 million. Now, what we have done for you is we have done our own valuation, which I'll get in, where what we have done is we have taken their current top line growth and we have adjusted it with some relevant growth rates, which you will get on later. But accounting for the realistic growth and assuming a cost of capital of about 15%, we see the company in the next 5 years has potential to make $13.5 million in today's dollars. So as you can already see, that SPI currently is undervalued. Before I move on to the next slide, I would also touch upon some certain other considerations that we did find in SPI's operations, primarily their assets. We do see certain liquidating issues in terms of just acquiring their assets that would kind of entail paying off their current liabilities by liquidating their current assets. Now there we do see certain liquidation issues in terms of the AR collection. We do not feel entirely confident that all of that over $1 million in accounts receivable would be collected, primarily because the amount of bad debts that the company has been incurring does kind of indicate their credit department could be a little bit more stringent. We are also a little bit unsure about the liquidation capabilities of the trademarks that SPI currently holds. Also, but we do acknowledge that 90% of their inventory currently is in raw materials, and those can be traded in the commodities market. So out of that $5 million, we'd probably be able to liquidate almost $4.5 million. But bottom line is, currently SPI is heavily undervalued. So some of the recommendations for you today. We highly recommend you go ahead with the purchase of $7.7 million that the SPI is asking. If less, even better. And we do see certain leverage, having some leverage in terms of driving the price further down because of the lawsuits and certain management issues. And we would love to discuss with you further as to how that negotiation could be structured. We also recommend, once you acquire the company, to kind of solidify your credit department policies so that you can reduce bad debt expenses and save almost $250,000. In terms of management recommendations, we do recommend hiring a new manager. Now, looking at SPI's current management payout structure, it seemed that the salary that the owner has been taken out to us. It appears that has a dividend component attached to it, $400,000, and the year before that increased $150,000 in a year, which does not indicate to us that is completely representative of his of the work he's doing, but more so there could be a dividend component to that. So we do sense that even if you pay $103,000 in management salary, you do have potential saving $400,000 a year. We also want to see you focus heavily on integrating the new staff. One thing we would recommend is keeping the marketing staff. We see that the marketing and advertising is the biggest line item right now, which we do feel is what's driving that sales growth year after year. And it's a new market, a new product line you're getting into, so we see a lot of value in retaining the marketing staff. Lastly, the lawsuits. Now, the lawsuits are, in our view, almost like a deal breaker because you're growing, you're being successful, the owner wants to get out of his business, and nowhere in this acquisition should your reputation be questioned. So if there is indication that the lawsuits will prevail or there might be more coming in, then we highly recommend you don't look at the acquisition anymore. However, we do not see that being an impending threat for now. So, bottom line, let me retrace one more step. With the losses, we also see a lot of cost savings because in the last 3 years there has been certain lawyer fees. So overall, what you can see is just by virtue of good management, you would be able to save $800,000 a year, and that includes paying for a new manager as well. So the result would be top line growth. Ultimately, not only do you get to increase your strengthen your current position in your existing product lines, but acquiring this company that is already growing 7% in their revenue, you see we are very confident we will see substantial increases in top line growth. For the EBITDA that we have adjusted, we do see 33% growth in EBITDA, and that adjustment is essentially that $800,000 in savings. So essentially what you're seeing here is if you were running SPI, how would that EBITDA keep growing year after year? Lastly, what we have done, we've gone a step further in terms of valuing the company. And what we have done is we did a projection for the 5 years, and that's where you saw the $13.5 million in net present value. Now the thing is, on year 6, the company is not just going to wrap up shop and exit the market. Organically, we do expect the economy to grow at 2%, so we assume that SPI's business, that business line will also keep growing 2% at a perpetual rate. So we did a discounted cash flow model where we calculated the terminal value of the organization. What that essentially means is from year 6 onward, if the company made 2% organic growth forever, what would that be worth in today's dollars? Taking that into account and the 5 years of net present value, we see the company is worth close to $35 million. So as you can see, the company's undervalued. It's undervalued heavily. It's almost 20% of its value that we see in it. Perfect. I'll pass it on to you.
Now, as Adi has thoroughly explained that this acquisition is extremely beneficial to your company, let's look at how that's actually going to look for your company itself. So first, we are going to disclose to SPI the fact that this lawsuit has to be resolved and that there's going to be no further lawsuits before the deal is closed. So before November 1st, we recommend that deal or that lawsuit has been completely eliminated. It has been settled, and there's going to be no more liabilities for you to insure. And as we know, that when you buy, the main reason that SPI actually offered to buy shares is for you to actually absorb all their liability, which is why we think that because he only offered shares because of that lawsuit. So we do want to ensure that that lawsuit is completely resolved before anything happens. So with that is going to be beginning the due diligence process, making sure everything's properly valued, going through the negotiation process, hiring a lawyer, ensuring that everything is going to be up to standard for this company and for this acquisition. And on November 1st, that deal will be closed, and you will have absorbed their company and begin the management hiring process. You will begin integrating the staff together and ensuring that there's no HR issues between SPI and Old Spice right now. So we want to make sure that the staff is completely integrated and that they're going to work well together and that everything coincides. Another thing that we want to touch on is that you do have to basically advertise the fact that this is going to be under a new name. This is under BSL. So as you see there, January 1st, we do recommend that you start beginning a product launch. And what we actually do see is that for a new product launch, because it's too time consuming to actually launch for Christmas time, we do recommend that you launch a Valentine's Day complete mail package for those women looking to, or women or men looking to actually purchase an entire set line for Valentine's Day. So we do see that this is a very beneficial time for you, and we think that you can actually capitalize on that event of Valentine's Day. And looking at January 2015 onwards, so this is basically just reevaluating the entire acquisition, making sure that the staff has been integrated, making sure that the process of hiring and that the background checks have been fully looked at, making sure that the staff has been doing it well. Also making sure that you do a 6-month evaluation and re-looking back. And lastly, is actually implementing the appropriate incentive structures in case those employees do not feel that they are fitting well with your culture. So we do want to recommend that too. And lastly, there are a few risks with this, and I've touched on this a few times, but the human resources issues, we want to boost that incentive program in case that they do not coincide, and worst comes to worst, there is potential to let people go if they do not mesh well with the business. The competition increases. So there are companies like Old Spice who actually currently occupy the deodorant market. So we do recommend that you actually increase those marketing efforts. So in the actual reduction of cost with your business, we have provided that leeway for you to go, and we do see that is potentially happening. And the unresolved lawsuit basically do not purchase the company. And to finish off, Jeff and Jim, through purchasing this company and diversifying your product line, you will gain a foothold in the deodorant industry and offer an entire product line based around body scents. We would now like to open the floor for any questions if you have any.
So this lawsuit makes me nervous, makes me super nervous. You've identified this as being a concern as well. Is there any way for me to manage this purchase just purely without inheriting any of the legal liability associated with lawsuits? You mentioned make sure this lawsuit is resolved. My concern is, what about if more come along after the fact and I bought the shares, they're now mine, this company is mine. You indicated, make sure before we go ahead as part of our due diligence that there's no more lawsuits. I don't feel comfortable there's any way to make sure there's no more lawsuits. Is there another option for me?
Yes, that would be purchasing the assets. And due to the timeliness of this matter, the owner of SPI is very concerned about actually selling these buy shares, so we don't see this possible. Again, we want to make sure that we do our research in that time frame before the company is purchased, so we want to be as thorough as possible. So in that due diligence process, making sure that we do our research, making sure that there's no shells that could be uncovered in the future for your business itself.
If I may add one more question, what we kind of focused on heavily was the integration part of staff coming over, and we do feel that when you are screening the staff and when you're talking to them, that concern about whether there's going to be more lawsuits coming in will become apparent to you from the staff, because ultimately these lawsuits are resulted by business behaviors of common service staff.
Would it make a difference whether I purchased, if I could convince them that I just want to buy the assets, not the shares? Do either of those situations preclude me from getting the employees to come with me? Would I only get the employees under one of those scenarios, or do I get them under both?
For when you're looking into purchasing the assets, what we see happening would be SBI forced to liquidate some portions of their asset to pay off their debt and kind of hand you over whatever capital assets that remain so that you can use it in your current business line. Under that model, we do not see the entire operations transforming over because there would be certain liquidation, be that in inventory, be that in certain capital assets, just to pay off those debts. So by taking the assets approach, you will probably end up dissolving SBI, whereas by taking the whole shares, then you can amalgamate SBI's operations into your own and increase them and add in the profit.
But if they dissolve SPI, they don't need the employees. Wouldn't I get the employees that way too then?
The exact details of the employees we can discuss later. In terms of the logistics of the staff purchasing over or coming over, we're not sure the exact details of that, but we'd love to expand on that after this if we need to dive into that more deeper.
Okay. So can you take me to, I was a little bit confused at one point when you talked about a $13 million valuation, then you talked about a $35 million. I think you've done a great job of then answering. I wrote a question for myself, but you answered it for me, why 13 to 35, those don't look the same. Just so my understanding is correct, the $13 million was based on a 5-year projected net income, I guess, but then discounted to today's dollars. The $35 million, I heard you speak of perpetuity, so that would be sort of the at a 2% growth rate from year 6 onward, also still including that first 5 years as well. Okay, and if that's the case, how realistic is that 2% assessment?
We think it's very realistic because in our model, when we were doing the growth projections, we did not, the first year's growth, we became conservative when we reduced it by 2% to 5% because it's a new business, we're starting out, we're trying to capture market share for other cases. And the next 2 years, we do see you growing at 10% and then tapering off to 5%. But the 2% is highly realistic because at the end of the day, if the business is just running normally, then it should organically grow at the country economy's rate because if you're not growing, you're not succeeding.
Okay. Can you show me that? Do you have something that you can show me for numbers for that, what that looks like?
So what I'll walk you through first is the growth. So what you can see here is like 5%, 5%, then we grow at 10, and then we taper off at 5. What we have done is we have adjusted the earnings before interest and tax, which would kind of be your free cash flow. We've adjusted it our model says that that growth is worth $23 million.
Sorry, it's worth 34?
The growth in perpetuity.
Oh, the growth is, okay, which puts the overall valuation.
Is 34.
Okay, so I'd be getting a deal. And what you're basically saying is that the price they want to sell this, I'd be getting a deal if I take this price. Even better if I can negotiate lower.
Exactly.
On the assumption that we're comfortable with that lawsuit being resolved before the purchase.
And because we do not have your actual current financial statements with the information provided, but because you are looking to actually acquire this company, we have had the assumption the entire time that you were in a position to actually purchase this company and that you're in a position where you have a well-maintained management system, you have well internal controls, and adopting your process into this company itself will ensure that we kind of take those ethics and those controls into this business, and that's how we can ensure the fact that you're going to save that $800,000 in avoidable fees each year, which allows us to kind of project the fact that this company is overvalued, or sorry, undervalued. Okay,
so that's the end of Q&A. I'm going to open the floor, actually, because we're so fortunate to have some of your peers here today, some of their comments on peer-to-peer, what you saw, what you liked, what you think would be even better, what you didn't particularly like. Let you guys give some peer-to-peer. Sure, yes.